Yes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us. And a warm welcome to everyone who's in the room. We have a packed audience, as well as those who are live streaming and in our overflow room. My name is Maggie Lake. I'm going to be your moderator today, and we have a fantastic discussion in store for all of you on the power of partnerships, mobilizing finance and unlocking private sector solutions, something that's so important, as many of you know. To begin with and kick things off for this session, I have the pleasure of introducing the new World Bank Group President, David Malpass. Many of you may recognize his name. He's had a long and distinguished career in both government and in global banking. So if you could please give me a warm round of applause for
Thank you very much. This is about the 8th meeting of the day, and I didn't know I was supposed to come up, but it's very nice to be back at IFC. I've had the good chance over the last week. I've been in the new job for 3 days, and so I've been to IFC, and it's an important part of the World Bank Group. Creating an environment for private investment is a huge challenge, but it's absolutely critical to alleviating poverty and advancing shared prosperity, the goals of the World Bank. So thank you all for being here today and taking an interest and being involved in this important endeavor. One of the keys to creating that environment is the theme of this event, forming strong partnerships with the private sector and managing those partnerships as well. We're facing, and I want to read a few statistics, we're facing enormous challenges. More than 700 million people still live in extreme poverty. More than 1 billion people still live without electricity. 400 million people lack access to health services. 1 billion people live more than 2 kilometers from an all-weather road. 4 billion people do not have access to the internet. And global infrastructure needs, if you add up some of those and others, amount to $97 trillion by 2040. The public sector obviously cannot provide enough financing to close all of those gaps and to fund countries' development priorities. We must create the conditions to crowd in the private sector. We're working across the World Bank Group to transform entire sectors, investing in agriculture, energy, transportation, and other areas using the cascade approach. That means using scarce public resources to leverage private sector solutions. I supported this approach as part of the capital package that was worked on in 2018, and I'm happy to see that the World Bank Group is moving quickly to make it a reality. Here are some recent examples of how the cascade has worked in the last few years. In Egypt, the bank group mobilized private sector financing to build the Binban solar park and transform the country's energy sector. IBRD supported energy sector reforms with a $3 billion loan. MIGA provided $210 million worth of political risk insurance. And IFC mobilized a consortium of 9 international banks and worked with other lenders to mobilize $2 billion in private investments. Economic reforms freed up fiscal space, doubling social protection for the poorest 20% of Egyptians. The solar park will be the world's largest solar installation, 32 power plants once it's complete. You will see a video of this initiative shortly. And another example is in Cameroon. Each arm of the bank group played a role in the Nachtigal Power Project, a 420 megawatt hydropower project on the Sanaga River. The bank and MIGA together provided guarantees worth 450 million euros, which was crucial in crowding in international capital and providing political risk insurance. IFC committed 110 million euros for its own account and provided from its own from its own for its own account and provided 300 million euros interest rate swap and led a group of 11 developed DFIs and 4 commercial banks to mobilize more than 900 million euros, completing the financing of the project. Nachtigal will increase installed power generation in Cameroon by nearly 1/3, serving up to 5 million people. The project will also create 1,300 direct jobs and up to 27,000 jobs in the broader economy, and it will avoid around 1 million tons of CO2 emissions. These are 2 examples of how we are operationalizing the cascade across the bank group to maximize finance for development. But our ambitions are greater than that. We want to spread this breakthrough throughout the financial community. We think a set of principles is an important start. Just 3 hours ago in the World Bank atrium, 60 investors and development finance institutions adopted the first ever operating principles for impact investing. I hope you've all seen the report. There's a nice report on the principles of impact investing. This brings impact investing into the mainstream by bringing credibility to the, quote, impact part of investments. For the first time, we have a transparent definition of impact and standards to monitor whether projects will bring opportunities and jobs to the poorest communities and promote development that benefits the environment. The discussion today will illustrate how the World Bank Group is working to advance these operating principles for impact management by working with long-term partners, and how we are supporting governments to create an enabling environment, reform sectors, and unlock constraints to private sector investment. We will also hear about how to design environmental, social, fiscal, and good governance standards, which are an integral part of structuring these partnerships with the private sector. Thank you again for the warm welcome for me and for being here. I look forward to working with you to harness this powerful approach to boost growth, alleviate poverty, and advance shared prosperity everywhere in the world. Thank you very much. And now,
oh, well, it's all private.
For us, why is it important to go to this cascade approach? We have done for 62 years IFC financing private investors that used to come to us and say, okay, we have investment in this country, and then we have a number of filters. You know, it's not drugs, it's not weapons, it's not this, and then you go to the structuring of the deal, because we have been for 62 years trying to combine 3 things. One is financial sustainability. Otherwise, that's phase 1. If you think about phase 4, first phase, you need financial sustainability of the company with finance, because if they're bankrupt, there is no impact, which leads me to the second phase, development impact. We have been created to show that we can both make profit and have impact. That's where we're created in 56. And the third phase is additionality. Why do finance what the private sector can finance itself, or the private banking sector or other financial institutions? So these are the 3 phases. Now, we have been doing and being very successful. The key issue now is we have always been pushed for a long history to go to the toughest and toughest phases. And now we want to do much more in the poorest countries, and much more even in fragile states. And that's tough. That's very tough. So how do you do it? Because what we have witnessed, we did ramp up very quickly in Africa, but for the last decade we have stagnated at about 3 billion a year. Now how do you go to the next level? And I keep asking my staff, I keep asking other colleagues, we all say the same thing, there is not enough bankable projects. So if you don't have bankable projects, create them, invent them. But for that, it's also not that easy. We need to start working a bit differently, which means to work upstream. Because if you just finance the project, you wait for the investor to come to you. Now it's the other way around. We're turning the table. And we have a very good example that on Skenisora, that is one of my favorites. I mean, you saw the one in Egypt. Yeah. But in Zambia, we did something like that. But what does it mean? It means working with the government upstream. Say, where can we find a piece of land to put the solar panel for? Then we arrange and finding land is not that easy in many countries. Then we worked with our colleagues from the World Bank, because then the risk is what? You put the panel, you sell the electricity, but you sell it and you take a huge risk. So how do you de-risk that? We went to the World Bank, they gave a guarantee on the power purchasing agreement. And then we auction the project. I said that IFC will be there anyway to finance and structure the project. That meant that for investors that had no intention to set foot in Lusaka, we look at it as a sudden, because there is no risk. There is risk, but it's a risk that they can control. It's a risk of the construction, which is their risk, it's a project risk, but it's not the risk on the fiscal strength of the country, because the bank was there. There's no risk to not find a piece of land, and it's, as I say, it can take a lot of time to find a piece of land, and you have the financing insured. All of a sudden, we crowded in investors that had no intention to come to Zambia, and they came out and they competed. And that's very important, compete, auction. And the outcome is we came out with 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour, where the rest in Zambia is about 20 cents a kilowatt hour. So this is a win-win-win. You make a profit, you have a big impact. It's clean, it's more electricity, which means more economic activity. So I'm sorry I want to illustrate, because otherwise it's very quickly very theoretical. So that's, and we replicate that now in many other countries. We're in Senegal, we're in Madagascar, we hope that we'll be in Ethiopia soon.
I think what's so important about this panel is that we have represented the government as well as the private sector. So we can drill down a little bit in this now that you've sort of set the stage of what's different in the framework you're hoping to operate on. So let's start on the government side.